Jodie. I'm 54 years old and I'm from Eastern Victoria in Australia. I'm about to go on a bit of a journey, training for a marathon, which has been a childhood dream.
In my mind, there is only one real marathon, the original from Marathon to Athens in Greece. I set my goal as the authentic Greek marathon on the 11th of November 2018. This gave me 12 months to train and I started paying more attention to what I ate.
15 k's under my belt, city to sea done. This time next year it'll be the marathon. Looking forward to it.
I was determined to set small goals throughout the year, so I aimed for a couple of half marathons after the city to sea in Melbourne. The Geelong half marathon run was okay, but I realised I needed to hit the road harder. Unfortunately, I did, literally. I suffered a nasty concussion from tripping on the bitumen on a training run, which put me in rest mode for a couple of weeks. When I started running again, it was cold. Winter had hit. Okay, I got up. That's the important thing. It's just before 7 o'clock. Up at 5. Very cold, very dark. I've ditched the gloves. The beanie's still on after 13 kilometres. Now just the reward is the sunrise and a cup of coffee. Cheers. This was the 5th time I was to run the Run Melbourne Half Marathon. It is run in midwinter in Australia and I'm not a cold weather person. My son and daughter were running the 10-kilometre race, which started later, so I left in the dark while they slept in. It was drizzling and freezing at the starting line, so it was really good to get moving.
But I'm feeling pretty good, despite my kicked toe, so yeah, all good. Just got to meet up with my kids now.
By the time I reached the finish line, the sun was out and I had run my fastest time yet. I was fairly happy. Looking for some further motivation, I was going through my old running memorabilia. Originally from Sydney, I had run the City to Surf when I was 15 years old in 1978. When I realised this year, 2018, was going to be the 40th anniversary, I had to see how my time would compare now at 55 years old. I lost 21 minutes over the last 40 years, but I was pretty happy that I was still able to compete in the world's largest fun run. So I kept training and I tracked my kilometres. They were gradually increasing monthly and finally it was October and time to head to Greece. The aim was a few weeks holiday before the run so I wouldn't be suffering any jet lag. I was feeling a little guilty leaving my very pregnant daughter at the airport. I couldn't be in Australia for her due date and be in Greece for the run. So I told her I was looking forward to meeting my first grandchild when I got back. My husband and son came to Greece with me. It was great to train in some exotic places, but I sometimes struggled to find footpaths on the narrow back roads. We visited lots of ancient archaeological sites, including the great stadiums of Panasonic and Impass, and I couldn't help run around the track in the footsteps of ancient athletes. We also walked Mount Impass. It is the highest peak in Greece at 2,917 metres. According to Greek mythology, it is the home of the Greek gods and said to house the throne of Zeus. We stayed overnight in a mountaineering lodge partway up the mountain at the edge of the forest line. The next day we continued the steep climb with the mountain goats amongst the scree. The origin of the marathon run starts at the Bay of Marathon, where in 490 BC Greece was invaded by the Persians. The Greek Athenians had a surprise victory and a Greek messenger, Phidippides, ran approximately 25 miles from the plains of Marathon to Athens to announce their victory over the Persians. After hailing Nike, meaning victory, he then dropped dead. We visited the Tropaion, a large Ionic column that was erected in the place where the Persians are thought to have met their destruction. Even today, people leave flowers at the site. A replica of the Tropaion stands in its place where the fragments of the original being held in the Archaeological Museum of Marathon. Artwork of the day also depicted the famous battle. The Great Tomb of Marathon is a burial mound that occupies a commanding position on the plain and sits peacefully amongst ageing olive groves. It covers the remains of 192 Greek Athenians who fell in the Battle of Marathon. Epitaphs, athletic contests, celebrations and funeral sacrifices all perpetuated their memory. A Nike statue is located at the entrance of the Marathon township. In Greek mythology, Nike is the winged goddess of victory. Marathon hosts the Marathon Running Museum, showcasing all the official Olympic marathons since the first modern Olympic Games in Athens in 1896. This was an all-male event until the 1984 Los Angeles Olympic Games, when women were allowed to compete for the first time. The official Olympic marathon route of 42.195 kilometres, which is 26 miles, 385 yards, is still longer than the 25 miles that Phidippides ran. It is believed the race was lengthened at the 1908 London Olympic Games to accommodate its starting point at Windsor Castle. A bit of a reconnaissance, we visited the official starting line, checked out the flame cauldron and followed the start of the route. A blue line on the road with a sign every kilometre marks the official route. At the 5 kilometre mark, the route makes a respectful detour around the Great Tomb of Marathon before heading to the finishing line at the Panasonic Stadium. We stayed at a hotel close to the stadium in Athens. The day before the race, a running expo was held and you could feel the air of expectation. Really excited to finally be picking up my race pack and of course I bought a few souvenirs. That evening, we visited the Panasonic Stadium to see all the race preparations. The stadium was magnificent. It is built on the site where the Panasonic Games were held around 330 BC. A rebuild in marble was completed by 144 AD and was then restored for the first modern Olympic Games in 1896. The morning finally came and hundreds of buses were lined up to take the 55,000 entrants to the starting line in the marathon as dawn broke. It was cold and the local stadium was abuzz with anxious runners warming up. Runners were given a wave number and queued for the long wait to start. Reaching the top of the hill, a temperature gauge read 24 degrees as I ran the final leg into Athens, and there was very little shade en route. My husband and family in Australia were all following me on the tracking app. It was midnight in Australia, but they had been keen to see me to the finish line. As I got closer, I could hear the crowd at the Panasonic Stadium. It was such an amazing feeling as I hit the synthetic running track for the final 100 metres. As I crossed the finish line, I was totally overcome with emotion. I still tear up now every time I watch them. Hoping for as close to 5 hours as I could, I was happy to have finished in the top half of my age group. We picked up my clothing bag and I struggled to walk to the hotel to recover from aching muscles and sunburn. My husband bought me champagne and donuts to celebrate. You couldn't wipe the smile from my face. I was absolutely stoked. After visiting the Acropolis the next day, we flew back to Melbourne to my still very pregnant daughter. Finally, 11 days overdue, my first grandchild was born. To mark Daisy's birth, I bought her an olive tree. I hope she grows strong and healthy along with it, and I look forward to taking her running in the future.
Should we put it on your head? For Jojo? Here we go.
My husband asked why I wanted to run a marathon. I couldn't answer him straight away. It had always been on my wish list. I guess I wanted to prove to myself that I could do it, but I also wanted to prove to my children that you could do anything you set your mind to.
Daisy!